There's no shortage of man-made disasters in the world, and these disasters occur in varying degrees on a daily basis. In the past 50 years, there have been thousands of oil spills worldwide, with some being far worse than others. The largest two spills, the 1991 Gulf War spill and the 2010 Deepwater Horizon spill, resulted in over 5 million barrels of oil being poured into the ocean, and the effects they had on ocean life were quite robust. Although much smaller than these spills, the 1989 Exxon Valdez oil spill may be the most infamous one. The Exxon Valdez oil tanker left land on March 23, 1989, at night. On board were 53 million barrels of crude oil, along with 19 crew members. In the first few minutes of March 24th, the tanker hit a reef and a hole was torn in the bottom of the ship. Although it was dark, the Bly Reef is a well-known object in that area, so it was not entirely unexpected. Due to the large tear in the bottom of the ship, 11 million barrels of oil leaked into the ocean. When it occurred, it was the largest U.S. oil spill, though since then others have surpassed it in the amount of oil spilled, though none have surpassed how poorly the response to this spill was. After the spill occurred, Exxon employees, federal responders, and over 11,000 Alaskan residents pitched in to try and clean up the spilled oil. However, for 3 days following the initial spill, the oil was left to spread in a flat, calm ocean. This allowed for oil to reach all the way to the shorelines, further damaging habitats. Although there was a nearby response barge that was meant to handle these kinds of accidents from the Alaska Pipeline Service Company, it was out of service at the time of the spill. Even if this barge had been able to respond quickly, it was later discovered that there would not have even been enough skimmers on board to clean up the oil anyways. This then led them to shift to dispersants, attempting to break up the oil before serious damage was done. These dispersants failed, though again it was discovered that even if the dispersants had worked as intended, they were not nearly enough to tackle the entire problem. Exxon ended up paying $2 billion in cleanup costs and $1.8 billion for habitat restoration and personal damages, though this money did not solve the problem that remains. The oil was detrimental to local fishing towns, and it killed hundreds of thousands of plants and animals. In the years following the initial spill, efforts were made to continue to clean up the oil, and in 1992 the government determined that the area was clean. Even still, there are areas of the waters where oil remains to this day, so the cleanup was nowhere near as effective as it should have been. In other infamous spills, the responses appear to be a bit different than this one. The largest recorded spill is the 1991 Gulf War spill, which is already different because this spill was intentional, as an attempt to slow down U.S. troops by Iraq. Due to the nature of wartime, cleaning up the oil was not the first priority, and oil seeped into the ocean for almost a year. Even so, the majority of the floating oil was able to be removed, though there were still devastating effects on the environment and sea life. The next largest oil spill occurred in 2010, and it was the Deepwater Horizon spill. In this case, the rig exploded, so it was entirely unexpected. It was determined that there were some safety regulations that should have been different to prevent the spill from occurring, but for the most part, it was difficult to prevent. One highlight of this response was its promptness. Although it was still somewhat disorganized and not optimal, they were quick to try and help. In both of these situations, the crises were handled differently, yet in all three of these disasters, the damage was extensive. Things should have been done differently. Somewhat differently than the previous examples, the Exxon Valdez spill may have been the most preventable. Although this was an accident and a tragedy, there are many things that could have and should have been done differently in the response and preparation stages. First of all, the ship should have been more careful knowing that there were reefs in the area. If they had been more cautious of where they were traveling, they may have avoided the fiasco altogether by going around the reef, which would be the best case scenario. If they still managed to spill the oil, the next best option would be to have the relief barge readily available. This barge should have been fully stocked with enough skimmers to clean up a large oil spill, and it should have been prepared to be deployed the minute an accident occurred. Lastly, there should have been more research on the most effective ways to remove oil with the least cost to the environment. Had they known that the dispersants were not effective, those helping could have pivoted to another method earlier to reduce the total damages. Although this spill may have been entirely avoidable or have significantly less harmful effects if they had been better prepared, it did serve as a lesson to make changes for the future. Today, the U.S. Coast Guard monitors that area, helping ships to avoid the reef as they pass through. Along with this, each tanker now has two vessels that travel with it, and these vessels are there to aid navigation and are prepared to help if any problems are to arise. The boat captains require special training for that area, and the tankers are required to have double hulls to limit the chances of rips in the future. There are also drills run in the Prince William Sound annually to practice for if another spill were to occur. There are several other measures in place to prepare for disasters and assist with recovery, and it is all thanks to this spill. Although it is still a tragedy, it is good that it was able to be used in a way that would be beneficial should something similar happen in the future, though hopefully it does not. Accidents are bound to happen, so the best that can be done is to urge companies to seek better emergency management plans and prepare for the worst case scenario to mitigate harm.